All right, let's try that again. Okay, I'm getting waveforms on the audio. Okay, okay. Hello, everyone. I am Sage Mann. Yes, that's actually my name. It's not some sort of internet handle. Welcome to the TAPAS and Stuff Productions podcast. It is week 34 of TAPAS's existence, and I'm going to stop counting the weeks now. The count starts at number 1 with the podcast. Feel free to minimize this window and go about your business while I drone on for a bit. I'm here with my little sisters. Here's Ziya.
Hi.
And Aramie.
Hello.
And we got 3 dogs here. That's crazy. Okay, so I've got this just sort of script here where I just kind of drone on, and you feel free to interrupt with any thoughts or questions you have about, because it's not supposed to be a me podcast. It's supposed to be sort of a community thing.
Can I eat?
Yeah, you can finish your pizza. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm dividing the podcast into 4 segments for the time being. The first segment is Drizzt and the Companions of the Dance Hall, a 5-hour epic musical comedy I've written in the style of Team Star Kid, sort of a Dungeons and Dragons musical, parodying the Drizzt Stewart novels by R.A. Salvatore. Written a complete book and lyrics, finished it a little over a year ago. Wanted to produce it this year, never got a chance. And I'm musically illiterate, so only about half the songs have anything approaching a melody. But I'll be telling you about the musical, scene by scene. Hopefully one of these days I'll be able to actually produce it as a play this time, film it, put it up here on the YouTube channel. So we start Act 1, Scene 1. Set dressing is in the tradition of the cheaper and sillier Team Star Kid musicals. It's a bare and empty stage with a plain door off to the side for entrances and exits. And done some attempts at costume design. You two have seen it.
Yep.
This podcast will have some visual aids. Put those up on Still Store, Cambot. It's a Mystery Science Theater reference there. Drizzt Stewart, played by me, enters the scene, hooded, facing away from the audience, and he sings, "Our tale begins right here in a world they call the Forgotten Realms. It's a land of deadly things, so buckle on your shields and helms. What's this coming into view? Nothing that would interest you. I'm just a lonely drow with a scimitar or 2. And he talks to the audience a bit, all interspersed with more singing, and he writes in his journal talking about his 4 friends, and Regis the Halfling bursts through the door wearing a boarding school uniform and a blue sweatband, snacking on red vines, and he says, "Did somebody say Regis?" And they're ready to go out looking for Mithril Hall, the ancient dwarven homeland, but Drizzt thinks Regis's outfit seems rather lifted from somewhere, so Regis decides to go change. And then the dwarf king, Brunor Battlehammer, and his adopted human daughter, Caddy Bree, come in.
Oh my
Yep. And they talk to Drizzt a bit, hoping he's in a good mood, that he's not brooding all over the place. And of course, they're Scottish, because dwarves, Scottish. Nobody knows why, everybody hates it, but that's what you gotta do. And as for Drizzt, I would play him in a Canadian accent, because I read an interview with the author where he said the reason Drizzt wields curved blades might be because he, the author, is a hockey fan. So I went with that. So our dark elf, he's Canadian. He's all like, "I'm sorry," and that's what this is all about. And okay. And Regis comes back dressed like Sir Robin from Spamalot, which is a role I played on stage myself once.
You did?
Olivia. You were there. You saw me
I
in
know.
Spamalot. Yeah. And Brunor chases him off, telling him, "You're a halfling rogue and you're gonna dress like one." He wants a normal, non-silly campaign. So Brunor gets a little solo in the middle of the song. I'm not going to spill all my musical secrets. Still hoping to actually produce this play one of these days. He dreams of finally seeing his lost childhood home of Mithril Hall once again. That verse ends with, "And I'll be the one who is totally awesome." And then Wolfgar the Barbarian bursts in, "Yeah, you'll be the one who is totally awesome." Hopefully not with that exact melody. Hopefully it'll flow with the song. So Wolfgar is swinging his mighty hammer around. My idea for that prop is that it'd be a piece of Marvel Comics merchandise with a big price tag still on it. And he demonstrates that it always magically returns to his hand. He throws it off stage, and a stagehand brings it back to him. And it's all just so fucking funny. There's this joke. And Regis returns one last time dressed as a young Weird Al. And Bruenor tries to chase him off again, but Drizzt comes up with a compromise. He just ditched the glasses and the mustache, so he's basically cosplaying the modern Weird Al. And that's Regis's costume for the whole play. And then they sing the finale to the song. Time passes, years go by with a doot 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 and a dip da dip da dip. You'll never see me cry. Give it a ram a lam a lam a lam a lam a ding dong. My friends know who to call. With my friends I have it all. We're a hungry band bound for Mithril Hall. We're a hungry band bound for Mithril Hall. So that's our opening number. They're all together, and Bruenor stresses that this campaign means a lot to him. So that means no silliness. They all protest. They
Unfortunate.
they have conversations that I've had with my own D&D players when I wanted to run a dead serious campaign. Canterbury's are like, "Come on, why are you doing this to us? To yourself, really? Why does everything have to be serious? Can't we just have fun?" And Bruenor tells her, dramatic high fantasy is fun, and it's more fun when you're not cracking silly jokes all the time. Making a mockery of it is 1,000 times less fun, and you all know it. To that end, he explains he's purchased a little mechanical gadget that deals 40d6 lightning damage to anyone who makes a Monty Python or a Princess Bride reference.
Oh.
No fun allowed.
Yep. Drizzt takes Bruenor aside and reminds him it doesn't matter whether they're taking the genre seriously or not. What matters is the five of them enjoying each other's company and discovering amazing things. That's what this world is all about, he says. Bruenor submits to that, and the five of them all go off on their way to find Mithril Hall. Looking for Mithril Hall, that's the quest. So around this point, the assassin, Artemis Entreri, comes out. And he's angry. He resents Drizzt because they're both about equal when it comes to skill with the blade, and yet Drizzt has friends and a life outside of fighting, so essentially, Drizzt did not sell his soul for his talent the way Entreri did.
No. Dog mine.
No puppy fighting. It's my puppy anyway, everybody knows.
No, it's not.
Okay, it's Aramie's puppy, but...
No.
uh,
She's going to fall off.
Aramie's got the puppy now, good. Okay.
Apologize for the shenanigans going on here.
No, that's good. That's good. That's why I'm not doing this alone. And while Entreri is seething and grumbling about all this, in comes Jarlaxle, a very eccentric drow mercenary with his big plumed hat and his midriff-bearing vests and his tight pants and his fabulous rainbow-colored cape.
I already love this man.
Yeah. And he's a drow, and he's a, did somebody say Jarlaxle? And Entreri is like, no. Jarlaxle's voice is what I've been perfecting for a long time, just in my head when I read the books, and I don't know how I'm going to teach somebody else to do it, since I'm playing Drizzt. Sort of a Jamaican, Indian, Spaniard voice. Yeah, and so let me give you a good long line from the script to demonstrate. No? Well, maybe what I heard was just the universe saying, man, he's been on stage for all of 10 seconds, and already we need a break from this guy and all his mopey, pouty, being evil sucks nonsense. We need something to liven things up, and that something is Jarlaxle! You can't have Entreri without Jarlaxle, after all. Yeah, you can. So Jarlaxle wants to make sure Entreri is in perfect condition to fulfill their quest of being paid a lot of money to bring in Drizzt Do'Urden and his friends, and Jarlaxle needs Entreri at the top of his game, so he asks Entreri to sing the blues to release the tension he's feeling. Entreri initially refuses, but Jarlaxle brings in a blues band, and Entreri submits to it. I got one job in this world, and I do it pretty well. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, ba 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 bum. I hunt down the thieves and the traitors, and I send them straight to hell. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. But I got the Kalimshan blues, 'cause it's left me an empty shell. Jarlaxle goes, chin up, Artemis. Your life isn't so bad. I mean, look at me. The day I was born, they was gonna sacrifice me to an evil spider goddess. 'Cause I was the wrong type of child, not the type who'd fill out a bodice. But I ain't got the men's Baranzan blues, 'cause of all the drow, I'm the hottest. And then Jarlaxle brings in a couch, and he tries to really psychoanalyze him, and Entreri's starting to get ticked off, and the song ends with them back-to-back facing the audience, and it's, no, I bet you never thought you'd see Jarlaxle and Entreri sing the blues. blues. Oh yeah. A lot more song in the middle there, but again, don't want to reveal everything. So when the song's over, and Trary actually kind of wants a bit more therapy, but Jarlaxle is content that singing about it made him feel better. So he says, "Let's go get our hands dirty. YOLO!"
Ow.
Yeah. So that's scene one, our introduction to both the companions and the sellswords, containing the first two musical numbers, which I'm pretty much finished with, in that I can sing them. I have no idea what notes I'm singing or how to play them on any sort of instrument. Someone's going to have to transcribe that for me. That's kind of the thing about all these ideas. Can't do them by myself. Need someone with actual skills and talents to help me finish. That's what Tapas and Stuff Productions is all about.
What do you do?
Incidentally, Tapas stands for Totally Awesome Productions and Stuff.
Hitting them.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a little break here before moving on to the next segment. Stop. And we're back. Sure, go ahead. Do the theme song. That's pretty awesome.
Good job, Squirt.
Yep, okay. So we're back. These two are just kicking some butt at Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ziya plays Riku's parts, Aramie plays Sora's parts. We're getting through the
Don't
story.
hit the mic.
On proud mode. Difficult mode. Okay. Ooh, the second segment of my weekly podcast shall be about Team Salmon, the purely hypothetical at this point animation division of Tapas and Stuff Productions. Got some big ideas for cartoon shows. Gotta teach myself how to art better, because you can't be an animation creator if you can't draw, and I'm okay. I can draw okay, but I need to get better. The first few
That's
weeks.
the spirit.
Yeah, so for the first few weeks of the podcast, I'm going to tell you about the first episode of each series, and then start sharing some art and further stories, if available. So the first idea is called Some Sweet Kind of Vampire, and it's a idea I came up with in the fall of 2010, and I wrote so many jokes back then that I almost think it'll have to be a period piece set in exactly that time. It's a teen vampire romance, only instead of the usual melodrama, it's a sitcom. Some taglines and marketing ideas to display that, stuff like, about three things I was absolutely positive. First, Harriet was a vampire. Second, she could really pull off a poodle skirt. Is that only two things? About two things I was absolutely positive. You picture in your head a shoujo manga kind of style. I want it to have a very faithful anime aesthetic. I'm not sure how to design that myself. Might need some help with it, but for it all to look very much like a soft and sweet romance anime to add to the comedy. And I've written the pilot episode of this series many times. I know it by heart, though I'm still reading it from the script here. Just ad-lib that. Okay, we open on an apartment in the fictional college town of Nesme, Virginia. And here we meet our hero, Tom. It's a guy with dark hair, wearing a black turtleneck and jeans, watching a very scary movie with just this totally blank look on his face. Some horror happens on screen, and he doesn't move or react to it at all. The door bursts open, and his three friends barge in. There's Kevin, who's this blonde guy, kind of short and a bit chubby. He's been this rich kid all his life. He's Tom's best friend of many years. And there's Kevin's girlfriend, Ash, who I guess could be described as a sassy black woman, but not in the stereotype way, just in the purely literal meaning of the words. Kind of weird, but she's really good looking and hardworking and forward thinking, all to the point of just exhausting herself with how seriously she takes the college experience. And finally, there's Ash's best friend, JG, who is a tall, beautiful, blue eyed blonde, but you'd never think to describe her that way because she's just so freaking crazy that it never occurs to you that she's good looking. The three of them are trying to get Tom out of the house a little bit. They make him cheer up, but he rebuffs them. He's content just sitting on his butt watching a movie he's already seen, not thinking about anything. So his friends give up and leave him be, but not before asking about Tom's new roommate, Harriet, who he's been living with for about a month. She's so transparently into you for some reason, they say. Doesn't seem to interest Tom. Now, in the starlit streets of Nesme, we come across Harriet herself, walking down the street in a softball uniform. She's got long, curly brown hair and pretty blue eyes. She's just a sweetie. And as she passes by an alley, two guys start to follow her. They're both pretty scary-looking guys, but not the kind of guys you'd expect to see together.
What are you doing?
Aramie just wrote down the lyrics to the theme song, Ba Na Na Doo Doo Dee. Yeah. So there's Geraldo, who looks like a massive hulking gangster, and Dustin is a tall, skinny goth guy with just long black hair and nighttime sunglasses. And so they pursue Harriet for a block or two, and then they lunge at her. They reveal their vampire faces with glowing red and black eyes and lots of sharp teeth. and they start to attack her. Their every strike gives you streaks of light. You get red and blue light from Geraldo, green from Dustin. She's on the ground, and they jump crazy high to pounce on her. And then she leaps to her feet, makes the vampire face herself, and emits pink light. And she takes down the pair of them, pins them against the wall, going,
Cool.
yeah, so she's a vampire too. And they all laugh about it. They've apparently just come from the same softball practice. They're very old friends. The guys just wanted to see if it was even possible to get the jump on Harriet. So they go back to Harriet's apartment. Harriet changes out of her softball uniform, and Geraldo and Dustin, they come to a decision. Geraldo talks to Tom, just finds him fairly unresponsive, so he's confused as to what exactly attracts Harriet to this guy. And Dustin talks to Harriet and finds she's unwilling to actually pursue her interest in Tom, as this would require telling him her own true nature. And at some point, Tom gets up to change the calendar, so it displays that it's now September 2010. Nice sneaky way of showing when it takes place. And he pricks his finger on the tack. And Geraldo and Dustin seize their moment. They pretend to go mad with bloodlust. They go after Tom. Harriet has to fight them off, and then effectively revealing to Tom that all three of them are vampires. Then, commercial break. Hi, Poppy.
Got anything to say to the people at home?
Bye.
Aramie, no.
It's Poppy. Poppy got nothing to say. Okay. So an hour or so later, Tom gets out of the hospital. He's just required a few stitches from the vampire attack. Harriet greets him with a bouquet of flowers, and after a long and awkward walk down the hall, Harriet confesses that she and her friends are vampires. Dissolved to Tom's car, Harriet drives him back home. In silence, it's awkward. Tom tries to turn on the radio. Here's why this is probably not going to be the first cartoon we produce, because I like there to be some real songs in this show. Starting with Sinead O'Connor's Empire. Vampire, you feed on the life of a pure heart. Vampire, you suck the life of goodness. Yes. Tom changes the station, and it's Vampire by Antsy Pants. I am a vampire and I'm looking in the city, but the pretty girls don't look at me, 'cause I don't have my fangs, 'cause I have lost my fangs. He glares at the radio, changes the station again, and it's Dracula by Gorillaz. Dracula, 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 Dracula. Tom just turns the radio off. And Harriet asks, is this going to be a problem? No. Silence. How do you sustain yourselves? Human blood. Then maybe we got a problem. Harriet then explains that she and her friends don't kill, they just take small amounts of blood from numerous people. It's not especially satisfying, but it's ethical. Their consciences are clear. They're certainly not normal in that respect, the three of them. Other vampires just kill. Wait, there we go. Okay. With Tom set at ease by his, Harriet pulls in somewhere. Then asks, where are we? Harriet says, my world. I want to show you. Okay, where you going? Okay. What you doing, Aramie?
We're in the middle of something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Child reobtained.
So, they're in the parking lot of what appears to be a nightclub called Ravers. They enter, and it's actually a bookstore and cafe. This is the local hangout, and it's owned by a guy called Raver, guy who would get the "and" credit in the opening title sequence if this was a live-action series. So Raver appears to be an aging Haitian musician, a form he borrowed from a man he met many years ago. He's in fact a 9-foot-tall, four-armed demon, which he briefly demonstrates to Tom, just kind of quickly shape-shifting, and then back. Raver is glad that Harriet has finally let Tom in on this whole thing. He sort of runs the supernatural community in Nesme, always there for a word of advice about living in harmony with one another.
Spooky dad.
Yeah. Tom is finally suitably freaked out. What got him was the revelation that Harriet seems to have been planning this for a while. So he drives to Kevin's house. Kevin's parents built him a house very near campus because they're crazy rich, and Kevin and Ash and JG all live there. Tom has to ascend a staircase to the second floor to get to the entrance. Kevin, Ash, and JG are all watching TV on a giant couch. Tom tells them Harriet is a vampire and that he's freaked out, and to his surprise, they instantly believe it, saying there's always been something strange about this whole town. They're more interested in the implications this has on Harriet's transparent feelings for Tom. Tom storms out of the house, gets back in his car, and sees a teeny tiny pixie pass by. And he realizes there's just no escaping from this. So he goes back to the apartment where Harriet is watching the same movie he was earlier and is just completely terrified. He sits next to her and watches the movie with her, and it's clear that he's just not going anywhere. And that's our first episode, or perhaps
Aw.
first 2 episodes. I've been working on this series for over 8 years, or more accurately, I came up with almost the entire series 8 years ago, and I've had a few little ideas since then.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes.
Yeah. So, what you guys think?
Great.
Aramie? You want more? Okay,
She
well,
want
that's
more.
so you want to know about some sweet kind of vampire? Well, that's good. That I left you wanting more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have a script for that. So,
Can I be in it?
you want to be in it?
Yeah.
I don't know what role you'd play, but we'll figure that
I
out.
can be an extra.
Maybe an extra. Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out. Sounds good.
Oh my god.
Okay, so third segment, keys and kingdoms, and it's my role-playing game setting and rules.
Oh, wait, we still got it?
Uh, well, Aramie said she wanted more,
Oh.
so we're still going. Okay, the theme: Disney. Origin of the idea comes from the many, many ways I've thought of to make the Kingdom Hearts franchise live up to its own potential a little bit more. First story-wise,
Yeah.
First idea I had was a multi-episode stage show with truly incredible Kingdom Hearts cosplay that retells every event of the series, but better and with more cohesion and awesome musical numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could pull that off, and I'd rather repackage the whole thing as an original idea, since, I gotta eat. And based on the rule system, some combination of Pathfinder and D&D 5th edition. See, those are under something called the Open Game License. Anyone can create and sell a game book using the D&D rules, as long as you create something new with it and don't use the small handful of D&D monsters that are actually trademarked, like the Beholder and the Mind Flayer and so.
Yeah.
Well, naturally, I'd be filing the serial number off of All Things Disney as well, but All Things Disney is the theme. Really great RPG set in a Disney-esque universe. That's what the world needs, and it's not like Disney's gonna make one, so
Yeah.
So, my grand quest to gather material for Keys and Kingdoms, I'll talk about it in a moment. I want to present the vaguest idea of the core rules. There's class selection. We go with every D&D class that's been a core class in multiple editions, which, conveniently, is the 5th edition class list. You got your fighter, cleric, rogue, wizard, ranger, paladin, druid, bard, barbarian, monk, sorcerer, and warlock.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And for races, I offer quite a different selection. I thought there should be 10 core races, just in the original rulebook. Start with humans. As in most RPGs, humans are the baseline, no unique perks or disadvantages besides perhaps being versatile, short-lived, equally predisposed to good and evil. So like bonus to an ability score of your choice, saving throw bonuses, extra skills and feats, da-da-da-da.
The classic human.
Yeah, human. And then dwarves, with elements of both typical RPG dwarves and the pre-high fantasy dwarves that you'd see in things like Snow White. And they'd have powers like stoneworking, a treasure sense, poison resistance, training against orcs, goblins, and giants, all typical stuff. Little Poppy. And I couldn't think of any Disney property that has elves in it, but you can't have an RPG with humans and dwarves without elves, so I figured they'll take a lot of influence from the Atlanteans of Atlantis the Lost Empire, while still maintaining what makes RPG elves.
They're pretty elf-like.
Elves, yeah, so like nature and tracking and accuracy and blah blah. Elves. And from there, things get interesting. Yeah, when it comes to Mickey Mouse and his supporting cast, and the cast of some other movies like Robin Hood or Chicken Little, decided to make them a race I call natives. So named because they're the oldest race in the universe, ergo everybody instinctively recognizes them, regardless of if they've ever seen them before. That originates from when this premise was about making sense of Kingdom Hearts to explain why Donald and Goofy can go anywhere without anyone really taking a second glance. But I think it's a nice quirk for the self-original setting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And mechanically, I think natives aren't really any different from humans because Walt Disney never really gave his funny animal characters any animal-like traits. They were just people. But I'm thinking there's got to be something to set them apart from humans, And one thing, they can probably be small or medium-sized, depending on what kind of animal they come from.
But so can humans.
Well, yeah, but I mean, humans, your average adult human is medium-sized in the RPG game terms. But while Goofy would also be medium-sized, like Mickey and Donald would be small-sized.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe they have like an unarmed attack bonus if they can bite or peck or use horns. But for the most part, they're just people who with animal heads who can't fly. They're not especially good swimmers. They don't have super senses. They're just humans who resemble animals, only somehow cooler, somehow, worth choosing as an RPG option. I came up with the idea of like a offensive slurs used against them would be the terms toons and furries. And that would give you an idea of how they'd be seen by prejudiced people, as either toons or furries. And then gargoyles.
Yeah.
Just straight up the gargoyles from the TV show Gargoyles. I'm gonna try to avoid just straight up stealing all the lore about them that the series creator shared on his blog, but keep it to the basics. Turn to stone when the sun rises, and back when it sets, they can't quite fly, but they can glide on currents of wind. Good unarmed attacks with their claws or tail, intimidating, just fascinating, honorable race to play. And then mermaids!
Yeah!
Mermaids! I make merfolk a core race. The underwater part of RPGs and video games is usually regarded as boring, which just doesn't make much sense to me why that always happens, because underwater geography and wildlife and monsters are just absolutely fascinating, and hope to demonstrate
It's
that
like
by
space,
making...
but on Earth.
Yeah! By making merfolk a core race, I hope to really demonstrate that. Their powers include intense beauty, water manipulation, communicating with aquatic creatures. As for becoming human so they can be effective on land, well, that's a high-level spell that somebody will have to learn. Until then, you have to carry your mermaid around. So that's some inconvenient drawbacks.
What are you? No.
Aramie just handed Ziya an ice cube for some reason.
He likes ice.
That's true.
You eat it.
That's true. Anecdote time. Yeah, when Ziya was a baby, we went to Red Lobster once, and she kept going, "Mama, Mama," until Mom gave her an ice cube. And then once that ice cube was done, she'd go, "Mama, Mama."
I'm being attacked right now.
Uh-huh.
Anecdotes. Where was I? Okay, fairies. Okay, so fairies, think like the blue fairy, or the three good fairies, or the fairy godmother, or even Maleficent,
Mhm.
Fairies were ubiquitous in early Disney films, which, might be why they call them fairy tales. I don't know, might be. And inspired by these early fairies, as well as the children of Oberon from Gargoyles.
Your classic fae folk.
Yeah, exactly. So in that series, for those of you who don't know, the children of Oberon are essentially fairies, and also every god and spirit in every world mythology ever is actually a child of Oberon.
Oh.
So my conception of Keys and Kingdoms fairies is as follows. They're born as adults, but the race itself is rather young. They only came to existence about 3,000 years ago during some sort of alignment of the stars or magic or whatever, and most fairies alive today remember that day. Your player character fairy is something new in the world. It's just come into existence and is starting at level 1. They're shapeshifters, so they can look like just about anything, but they try to stay recognizable as fairies. As far as abilities, I figure they have an assortment that can be bought with points, gaining more with levels or perhaps feats, whether it's flight, shrinking, growing, invisibility, teleportation, intangibility, more advanced shapeshifting. We don't want them to be OP, but they've got to be cool. Yeah. And then there's pixies, fairies and pixies. Pixies are more like Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
You have teeny tiny player characters about 9 inches tall who fly. You can squish them like bugs, but that's only if you hit them. Figure they have some innate nature magic and also a strong connection to humanity. They're born as young adults in places of natural splendor, and it's said that every time a human is born, so too is a pixie, and that the pixie dies when the human loses their sense of childlike wonder, hence why most pixies live less than 20 years. Pixies who live many decades are said to be connected to great human artists and don't die until their human does, but that's a legend, no one's ever confirmed it. So that's 8 core races right there. For the 9th and 10th, I had 2 ideas I eventually realized didn't really work as core races. So I'll talk about all 4, my first draft, last 2, and my actual last 2. One of the deleted races are called Nemos, inspired by the Nobodies of Kingdom Hearts. In this universe, a Nemo is a person who was brought back from the dead, but their soul used to create an incorporeal undead creature, making them alive but soulless. They need to be both really cool to play long term, but also have some incentive to become normal again. Not really sure how to do that. I eventually realized they don't really count as a race because it's something that can happen to any race, but I still want them to be a prominent option somehow. And on the same note, there's what I call soul constructs. Been talking too long. Sort of a catch-all term for a construct who was given a real soul by the love and passion of their creator, whether they were created through art, technology, or magic. And they're too diverse to really work as a core race, but I still want such characters as Pinocchio, Tron, Baymax, and Olaf to be a prominent option for player characters, just like the Nemos. So, yeah, the Nemo and the Soul Construct don't really work as core races, but I still want them to be options somehow. I don't know how. I'm not a genius, for God's sake. I need help with all these. If,
Yeah.
if there's anybody out there, yeah.
Comment down below.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Anyway, the real final two core races are the Mishka and the Sirsa. The Mishka came about when I realized just how common small civilized rodents are in animation, Disney and otherwise.
Getting
And
Ratatouille?
well, no, he's Ratatouille. They're just regular rats in that, but you know, but the kind that wear clothes, and you know, they live in little secret houses underneath the human houses. You know, like Great Mouse Detective or American Tail, you know, and or the animated Titanic trilogy.
We don't talk about that.
No. Yeah, you know, here's something interesting. People have been blaming Italy for the animated Titanic trilogy all these years. Turns out they were actually made in North Korea.
What?
That's why they're so freaking crazy. North Korea. Yeah. Okay, so where was I? So yeah, core race, the Mishka, and the Sirsa is the insect equivalent, since I figured that whatever the heck Jiminy Cricket is should be a player option as well. So with 3 teeny tiny core races, with the Pixie, Mishka, and Sirsa, I'll have to make sure the rule book includes plenty of teeny tiny adventures. When it comes to opponents, I'll stick with the usual RPG opponents, goblins, orcs, ogres, but like dress them in a Disney-esque fashion. Draw them in a Disney-esque art style, that's the idea. Dogs are barking because mom's home. Okay, yeah. The trick to drawing a character to look like a 2D animated character is to keep their design simple enough that it's not too terribly difficult to draw them 80,000 times.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Mom can come in.
Ah, jeez.
Okay, excuse me a moment. Andy, Mom can come in.
I know. I just had to.
Well,
Did you pause it?
no, still going.
Oh, wait, what?
Okay, I'm gonna take a break.
Okay.
This is 5 hours in a row. I'm kind of tired.
Alright, feel free to.
Yeah,
Back
we'll edit that part out.
I was gonna watch my stupid show.
It's okay. We're
I
almost.
can do it with headphones
Yeah,
on and stuff.
we're almost done here.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we'll be moving back on to Kingdom Hearts probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, are you guys having a good time?
Yeah. How was work?
Hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Bye.
But
Well, nice to me, and I got $55 in cash.
nice.
That's good. Our
Did you
mom,
guys have
everybody.
cereal this morning?
Yeah. Our mom, everybody. Yay. You ruined the applause joke.
Aramie?
Yes.
Definitely 100% riding bikes tomorrow for Thanksgiving. Okay? Thanksgiving bike ride. Yeah, the typical Thanksgiving activities.
Yeah, bikes.
And we have an extra bike.
Cool.
It's kind of a bucket of metal, but
And medals, yeah. Alright, finally, I want to talk about the themes, the genres of storytelling that can take place in a game of Keys and Kingdoms. You know, fairy tales, epic myths, pirates. Good. Pirates.
you're in the middle of something, Mom.
Pirates, cowboys, barbarian tribes, aliens, urban, and wildlife.
Wait.
Yes.
Raise your hand. Cool.
Yes, Aramie?
Thank you. Anyways, aren't aliens also considered foreign people in other words?
Well, we don't really use that usage in English anymore. Now, when we say aliens, we mean extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. So alien. Well, I call
That's
the theme
racist,
aliens, but it's really
Aramie.
I call it the aliens. It's just science fiction in general, like cyberspace and spacecraft and lasers, and I call the theme aliens because it's just less generic that way.
Aliens.
Yeah. So all of them have a place in any given Keys and Kingdom setting, whatever that it may end up being, and that makes sense with Kingdom Hearts, because you go to so many different settings in a Kingdom Hearts game, and I was thinking it even works just like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe alone. There's just so many different things going on, and it's all really weird to see it all come together. So that's kind of the idea I had there. So now, here's the important part. My quest for coming up with content for Keys and Kingdoms. When it comes to the actual rules of the game, I don't know, I'll read the open game license, fiddle around with it. Need some help from people who are better than me at really figuring out the nitty-gritty of role-playing games, but here's my quest. I have made a list of 212 Disney titles from 1937 to the end of this year, and I will be collecting them, watching them, analyzing them, not only in the task of building a universe for Keys and Kingdoms, but also just to enjoy and appreciate the heaps and heaps of what Disney has to offer. And as time goes on, I'll continue building my collection, starting from the company's beginnings and ending, again, this year. I'll be ignoring almost everything that happens after 2018 to prevent the collection becoming too bloated. And every week I'll watch some with whoever happens to be around, and I'll discuss the films in a general sense and in the sense of what they can add to Keys and Kingdoms. So stay tuned next week to hear me talk about Snow White, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yep, that's the end of segment 3, and we will be back. Hello, I'm back. It is much later. The girls are in the rooms doing their own thing, and time for me to give you the final segment of the podcast. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm reading, which I used to do a lot, not so much anymore, sadly, but when I'm reading, I always imagine in my head what it would look like adapted to the screen. I see sets and costumes, I hear actors' voices. When a new character is introduced, I often have a hard time moving on until I've cast the role in my head. So I thought it might be mildly interesting to talk about books I've read, review them, and share my head casting and production details. And I'd like to start with The Secrets of Droon. Never heard of that series, I don't blame you. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2014, I suddenly went, hey man, remember The Secrets of Droon? It's a book series I'd read when I was a kid. Lots of teeny tiny books, said to be perfect for readers not quite ready to pick up a volume as hefty as a Harry Potter book, and the production and casting ideas started flowing. I spent the rest of that year collecting all 44 books in the series, writing down a cast, really imagining the production of a Droon TV series in my head. So for the next 44 weeks or so, I'll be rereading each book, summarizing and reviewing them, and doing my best to reproduce all the production ideas I had last time I read them. So, The Secrets of Droon was a children's book series that ran from 1999 to 2010, a fantasy series by a fellow named Tony Abbott, no relation to the Prime Minister of Australia. Like I said, it's a good gateway series. I'm on board with the way it's been described because, for me personally, when I was in like the 2nd or 3rd grade and the Philosopher's Stone seemed too mountainous to handle, I could easily digest a Droon book, most of which barely crest 100 pages, if that. When I did get mature enough to tackle Harry Potter, I promptly forgot all about Droon. But what I realized back in 14 was that I'm still ripping off Droon in my fiction writing to this day. It molded me as a writer far more than the inimitable Harry Potter storytelling style ever could. So, as a kid, I got maybe halfway through the series, and at some point in my teens, I rediscovered the series and got a little further. Even now that I've reread the whole series, I can't remember exactly how far I got before. But, this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk you through each book in the series, kind of reviewing and discussing it chapter by chapter. Then after that, I'll talk about how I'd go about adapting the book into a Droon TV series, had I the power. I have no ambitions of actually producing a Secrets of Droon TV series, none that I'll admit to. It's purely sitting around and having a fantasy, which I'm sharing with you. So let's start with Book 1, The Hidden Stairs and the Magic Carpet, published in 1999. I never actually owned a copy of Book 1 as a kid, but I did get a chance to read it once when I was all alone at somebody's house. Whose house was that? Why was I alone for so long? What the heck was going on that day? Anyway, that house had had a copy of The Hidden Stairs and the Magic Carpet, and so little me was all like, nice, Book 1, and that helped kill a couple of minutes. And I do mean a couple of minutes. Book 1 is the shortest in the series by far, at only 80 pages. Small pages, with large print. Okay, strike that 85 pages, but still. So, I'm only going to say this once. Spoilers for every book in the series. You have been warned. If you have any intention of reading these books yourself, perhaps with your kids, read them, then listen to my podcast. Not that I imagine I'll convince anybody to read these books. I'm not I'm not influential. I mean, but, this is only podcast number 1. Maybe someday. Maybe. I'll encourage other people to buy all 44 books. That would be pretty cool. Chapter 1. The Small Room. Like most of the books in the series, Book 1 was illustrated by Tim Jessel. Strike that. Illustrated by David Merle with the cover illustration by Tim Jessel. Wait, I don't remember this already. I just read this book and I'm already forgetting stuff. Okay. So, yeah, okay. Cambot's gonna put up all the... Wait, no, I'm holding the wrong book. Yes, Book 1 was illustrated by Tim Jessel. Okay. I was holding Book 2. Okay. I'm sorry. Off to a bad start. Anyway, enjoy Tim Jessel's fine illustrations as visual aids for those of you who actually watching the podcast. What's wrong with you? Our story begins in an idyllic suburb filled with well-to-do white folks, somewhere in the general vicinity of the east coast of the good old US of A. In the beginning, we meet our protagonist, Eric Hinkle. He's this 11-year-old skinny white kid with glasses and untidy dark hair. That rings a bell somewhere. Where have I seen that before? I mean, besides in the mirror. No, I've definitely heard of someone else of that description. It's driving me crazy. I know it's familiar, but I just can't put my finger on it. Sarcasm aside, Eric is a really great kid hero. Personality-wise, he's, yeah, I've got nothing. Or rather, he's got nothing. Anyway, in these first couple of pages, we meet Eric's 2 best friends, who are just as white as he is, but far more interesting. There's Julie Rubin, who lives across the street. She is so much fun. Her personality is, slightly more feminine than Eric. Kinda. Little bit. Yeah, and then there's Neil Kroger, who lives down the block. He's blonde, and he's got lots of personality. He's always thinking about food, and he's sarcastic, always making smart remarks, and he's either foolhardy or cowardly, whichever is funnier in a given situation. He's genuinely badass when it really counts, and he's clumsy and quite unfortunate. All the humorous bad things seem to happen to him, and crap, Neil doesn't have a personality either, does he? He just has a starter pack of standard issue sidekick traits. But that's okay, I mean, it's good even. By making our 3 heroes fairly generic, that allows the young readers to project themselves onto one of them, which helps the audience to relate and immerse themselves. It's a technique that falls flat sometimes, but Droon does it very well. It's interesting enough to pull it off. In addition, over the course of the series, all 3 of them gain supernatural powers one at a time and begin to develop them, and with that, their individual personalities begin to shine through. Kinda. A little bit. Anyways, on to the story. Eric's mom sends the 3 kids down into the basement, where it's a complete disaster. They have to clean it up, so his dad can remodel. The basement is visited in nearly every one of the 44 books, but I don't think at any point do they even start to clean it. They putz around in the basement for a moment when they discover the tiny closet under the basement stairs. Oh, the shrimpy glasses guy has a cupboard under the stairs, does he? Boy, is sounding familiar. No, this cupboard under the stairs is a very different narrative function than a certain other cupboard under the stairs. It's not a cupboard so much as a wardrobe, if you catch my drift. Wink. Chapter 2. The Sky Below the Ground. The 3 kids discover that if there's total darkness and confinement in that little closet, if they shut the door and turn the light off, the floor is replaced with this rainbow-colored staircase that leads down, down, down into another world. Droon. The sky in Droon is pink, and the air smells sweet, and the forest is beautiful, but then flaming arrows start flying past them. Next chapter. You might think I rushed through that, but this is a really short book. Chapter 3, Groggles and Nins. The attackers are Nins riding Groggles, recurring adversaries throughout the series. The Nins are basically Droon's equivalent of orcs, chubby warriors with bright red skin who are more incompetent than dangerous, and the Groggles are their riding mounts. Nothing more or less than giant flying lizards. Also, Nin is capitalized, Groggle is not. That gets under my skin a little bit. Anyone else hate inconsistent capitalization? The rainbow stairs start to disappear, and the kids try to rush to the bottom to hide in the trees, but they fall, and Eric is separated from the others. But he's found and rescued by Princess Kia, the 4th member of the main ensemble. A princess with long, flowing golden hair and a gold crown. No, don't walk away yet. She's very stylish, wearing spangly tunics of blue or green, and she's the apprentice of the awesomest wizard in Droon. She's pretty awesome herself. This first book describes her skin as being white like clouds. But I'm pretty sure that's the only time she's described as such, and the illustrations just make her skin white like when you say a human is white, so let's go with that. Our all-white gender-equal ensemble. Way to go, 1999, you're almost diverse. Kia recognizes Eric as being from the upper world, as they call it in Droon, and she says, "You picked the worst place in all of Droon. Lord Spar is very close. His red nins are everywhere, hunting for me on their flying groggles." Thank you, Princess Exposition. I especially appreciate the adjectives applied to nins and groggles, really going the extra mile to fill in the audience there. Kia patches up Eric's injuries and gives him a secret message to take to her master, who can get it to her father the king. She then takes off into the forest to make the nins pursue her, getting them off Eric's back. So, call me genuinely impressed by her character. Great introduction. Chapter 4, At the Bridge. Eric reunites with Julie and Neil. Up above them, they see nins gathering on a bridge, where they meet up with their master, Lord Spar, our de facto big bad for most of the series. Spar shows up in a bright yellow bubble-topped car that bounces down the road on 8 fat tires going putt-putt-putt and honka-honka and shooting out blasts of bright blue smoke. Okay. While normally I'd save the bit where I talk about how I'd adapt the series for the end of the segment, I've really got to pipe up now. That car sucks! That car is a terrible vehicle for Spar to drive, especially at the moment he's introduced. If it were me, I'd take the given design of Spar's car, and I'd hot rod it up a little bit. I'd make it really angular, spiky, with, make its 8 cute fat tires, huge monster truck tires with spikes coming out of them, and instead of bouncing down the road going putt-putt-putt, it should go vroom. Give him a crazy smooth ride, and skid to a stop, and drift into a spot. That's your bad guy's car right there. The yellow paint job, the bubble top, the blue smoke, those can stay. I normally advocate adapting things more faithfully than that, but I think Lord Spar is awesome, and that Tony really misstepped by having his first appearance be driving Ronald McDonald's car. While I'm on a tangent, take a look at this visual aid right here. Here's an interesting quirk of the series. Really weird question marks. Look at that. Anyways, out steps Lord Spar. Yeah, tone it down a bit, Tim. So Spar is the evil sorcerer who hopes to conquer Droon. Let's analyze all the details of this guy. For starters, the illustrations depict him as very vaguely non-white. So the only non-white human in your cast is the villain. That's shit. You know that's shit, right? Anyway, he wears a long black coat. I don't know. I have trouble buying an evil sorcerer whose clothes have buttons. Sometimes the descriptions and illustrations swap out the coat for the more sorcery get-up of body armor and a black cloak, much classier. His face is mostly human. Goatee, hook nose, thick eyebrows, all the things that scream evil. And he's got these spikes running down his head. I think it's intended to just be a helmet, but there's the implication that it actually perfectly contours to the shape of his head. I think in my adaptation there'd eventually come a really dramatic moment where the helmet gets knocked off and revealed that he really does have those head spikes and they'd be flesh-colored and all veiny, but that wouldn't happen anywhere close to the first book, mind you. His most distinguishing feature, the first thing that raises the question of where to get one's hands on what Tony Abbott was smoking when he wrote this series, are the fins located behind Spar's ears. Kind of like what a lot of cartoon dragons have in place of ears, spiky, frilly fins. They're usually purple. When he gets angry, they turn red, and when he's absolutely livid, they go black. There's at least one moment in an early book where he gets scared and they turn pale. Another adaptational flourish I would do would be to make the fins move to express his mood as well, always moving. Spar is really awesome. I kind of assume his eyes are very dark, but also go red when he's angry. Anyway, Spar asks his nins what happened, and he says, "Scour the forest. Burn it all down if you must, but find the girl. Find her friends, too." And he takes off in his lame-ass car while the nins spread out. Chapter 5, The Vanishing Tower. So the trio run into the wizard's tower, literally because it's invisible at first. It's a pretty standard wizard's tower made of a huge petrified tree, and here's where we meet. My god, there can be no lengthy introductions. Max, the spider troll. If Spar's ear fins indicate that Tony Abbott might be smoking something, Max is proof that he's definitely smoking something. A spider troll, I ask you. If I'm remembering correctly, there are 4 characters who appear in every book. Eric, for dramatic reasons, is not one of them. Therefore, it's Julie, Neil, Kia, and Max. Freaking Max. Is the plot ever affected by Max's presence? Not really. Does he have any interesting personality traits? Nope. He's just a gigantic spider with a human head who hangs around just so he can claim he's in every book. I ask you, Hearing they have a message from Kia, Max brings them into the tower to meet the wizard. To quote the narrator, he was tall and thin and very old. He wore a long blue robe and a high cone-shaped hat. His white beard hung down to his belt. Really, Tony? Really? I hate to knock the classics, but I think you went a little bit too classic there. Not one original detail in his appearance. Well, here at last we meet Merlin. I mean Gandalf. I mean Dumbledore. I mean Gandalf. I mean Merlin. I mean Gandalf. I mean Gandalf. I mean Gandalf. I mean Galen Longbeard, the 542-year-old first wizard of Droon. I joke, but Galen is truly the most interesting character in this entire saga. I honestly think he beats out Spar, in my opinion. Yeah, don't let their wizard classic and evil overlord personas fool you. You know, as cliche as they are, these characters get utterly fascinating as the series goes on. So they give Galen Kia's message, Thuginot Dekkara Eblu Frodnifraz. Galen can't make sense of it, even though later books reveal that he used to encrypt messages by writing them backwards all the time, but whatever. Neil is the one who figures it out, said he picked it up from his sister. Neil has a sister? Is she ever mentioned again? I gotta keep an eye out for that. Read backwards, the message reads, Zorfendorf will be attacked tonight. So Galen disappears to tell King Zello to defend Zorfendorf Castle, and comes back instantly, easy peasy. Galen is upset to see that the Rainbow Stairs have returned, sad that Upper Worlders have returned in these dark times. Galen is just about to tell them how they can get the scares to return when his magic mirror fires up and reveals that Kia has been captured and is being imprisoned in Lord Spar's evil fortress of Plud. Plud? There's a brief period of time in the series' history where all the new stuff has really stupid names, but I guess Plud is a rare stinker from the early books. You could make a case for Zorfendorf as well. Also, how can a fortress be evil? Chapter 6, Home Must Wait. Alright, we're at the halfway point. Every standard book in the series is 10 chapters long. Let me just say, I wouldn't be making fun of the series like this if I didn't love it. If I didn't like this series, I'd be recounting it angrily instead of humorously. So Gandalf tells us, Galen gives us a bit of backstory on Plud, most significantly that it was the last place anyone saw Kia's mother, Queen Relna, who dueled Spar and was never seen again, presumed dead. Another important detail that defines the story arc for almost the entire first half of the series, Spar is after 3 magical artifacts of his own creation known as the 3 Powers. Galen stole them, turned them into mundane objects, and scattered them to the winds. No one, not even Galen himself, knows where or what the 3 Powers currently are. Then the magic mirror buzzes to life, and it turns out the whole Zorfendorf thing was just a ruse, and now that the kings rushed off to defend Zorfendorf, Spar's forces are going after the capital, Jaffa City. It's pretty decent tactics for a kid's book, you gotta give that one to Spar. So Galen has to rush off to defend Jaffa City, and the trio decide they're going to rescue Kia, because they owe her one. Chapter 7, The Forbidden City. Galen gives them a cloak of invisibility, yes, really, and they set off. They set off on the back of Leap, Galen's Pilka. Pilkas are the riding mounts used by the good guys in Droon, not capitalized, basically super shaggy llamas with 6 legs. Leap is the Pilka we see most often, but there's nothing that really sets her apart from any other Pilka. Oh, and Max joins them. Why? No reason. To paraphrase Wayne Brady, Max doesn't do a damn thing. Not a damn thing. But this sets the standard for the entire rest of the series. When the kids go off on their missions, they're always accompanied by Max for absolutely no reason. I'm sorry, look, I like Max, I really do. As far as cute, cuddly sidekicks go, he's way up there, but I'm just kind of cracking up at the realization that there's really no reason for him to be there most of the time. Off the top of my head, I can only think of 3 occasions in which Max's existence contributes to the plot, and those are the books in which he gets kidnapped. His presence only matters when he's not present. So they part ways with Galen, and they plod their way off to Plud. A pure white falcon flies overhead. Yes, really, a law of conservation of detail, trust me, that's important. Falcon's there for a reason. They reach the walls of Plud. At the sound of Spar's stupid-ass car, Leap runs away, and Max goes to chase after her, leaving the kids to storm the castle without him. See, I told you Max doesn't do a thing. The trio slip through the gates of Plud. Having heard a Nin say that Kia is in the highest tower, they head that way. Sneaking through the hallways and up the stairs until they reach the room in the highest tower, guarded by 2 Nins. So they put on the cloak of invisibility. Now? You're putting on the thing now? What about when staircases, hallways, hearing Nin footsteps all the while? Now you put the cloak on? Okay, maybe I'm spoiled by Harry Potter. There's nothing here that says it's a three-person cloak. Only Eric puts it on. Tricks the guards into beating each other up. Classic henchman move. They retrieve Kia, who's thrilled to see Eric again, and they prepare to make their escape. Kia says, Spar thinks I have the red eye of dawn. With it, he plans to conquer all of Droon. And so I shall, princess. Spar steps out of the shadows. Commercial break. Chapter 8, Prisoners, with an exclamation point. And so the four of them get locked up in another tower. Why not just lock them in the tower they were just in? Spar interrogates Kia, almost let slip that maybe her mother is still alive. At first, he notices the little leather pouch Kia wears around her wrist, which her mother gave her. He takes it and changes it into its true form, the Red Eye of Dawn, first of the three powers, a huge red ruby that controls the elements. While Spar is gloating, he takes a look at Eric, Julie, and Neil. He knows exactly who they are, that the stairs, his stairs, are in Eric's house. He's learned a lot about them by magically examining with their soccer ball. They brought it to Droon with them, and it got lost, see? And it becomes a rather significant symbol of the kid's connection to Droon. And then Max comes back and, alright, sometimes Max does something. Occasionally he'll go all Spider-Man on the bad guys, jumping around and webbing them up, like right now. And so with his arrival, they turn the tides. And, the kids fight the Nins by kicking the soccer ball at them repeatedly. Yeah, this is a recurring thing in the series. The kids and some ragtag allies fighting off the legions of evil using something mundane like a soccer ball. I know the Nins aren't geniuses, but they've got real weapons and armor. It strains disbelief a bit to see them getting their butts kicked by kids with a soccer ball, is all I'm saying. It gets crazier. I guess it's kind of that kid power thing that was big in the 90s, but this was 99. It was over. New millennium coming up. Spar manages to escape with the red eye. Why he goes for escape instead of fighting, I don't know. So the kids run away from the Nins, which makes a lot more sense, and end up making a wrong turn into a very small room. Chapter 9, Into Thin Air. So they're in some kind of storage room, Nins battering at the door, and all that seems to be in there is a bunch of old rugs. Kia has Julie check the tag on one. Rugs by Pasha, do not remove this tag. That's a good one, I appreciate that. So, naturally, one of these is the eponymous magic carpet. While they're flying out the window, Spar shows up, blasts them with bolts of fire and lightning from the Eye of Dawn, but as he pursues them, the White Falcon appears and holds him off. Why? It's a mystery. And with a yahoo, they soar into the clouds. Chapter 10, The World Under the Stairs. Now that they're home free, Kia figures it's time to help the trio get home. She once had a dream where she saw the rainbow staircase in the ice hills of Tarabat to the far north, so they take the flying carpet there. Sure enough, the rainbow stairs are there. As the trio ascend the staircase, Kia makes sure they have their soccer ball, and they make sure she has the cloak, because Galen! Dang it! You know, we wouldn't have this problem if your wizard's name started with any sound other than a hard G. What's the matter with you? Galen warned them of one of the rules of traveling to Droon, that being not to leave anything from the upper world behind in Droon, or take anything from Droon back home with them, because if they do, more things will start magically teleporting from one world to the other, maybe even people, until everything is set back to where it belongs. Sort of an equivalent exchange kind of thing. They reach the top of the stairs, and once again they're back in Eric's basement. They discover that only 10 minutes have passed in the upper world during the hours they spent in Droon, and they learn that Kia has enchanted their soccer ball to send them messages when she needs them. As the ball transforms into a globe of Droon, it tells them that their dreams will tell them when to return, and they're super excited. And with that, in far less time than it took to tell about it, the first book is over. And now for the second half of the Droon segment, the part where I talk about the things that, through no fault of my own, pop into my head for how I would dream of adapting the books to screen. I just can't help it. It happens involuntarily whenever I read anything. I envision a family drama on ABC or something. I initially envisioned an hour-long drama, but, a half-hour drama works, for kids. And that way each book can be adapted over the course of 2 to 4 episodes, depending on length and what we expand. I definitely want to expand rather than compress the story for adaptation. Like the Hobbit movies, only, less so, hopefully. See, even though I was born in 1992, I'm big on 80s nostalgia. I'd want this series to have the aesthetic of an 80s fantasy film. So the whole thing would have that strange, grimy quality that 80s films would seem to have, so it'd look dark, there'd be film grain, the outdoor sets would be very obvious sound stages with matte paintings in the background, the magic would be painted on like proto-CGI, lots of old-school chroma key and practical effects and puppets! I even think sometimes about what I do about executive meddling, like some things that the producers might make me do and how I respond. Like, If they told me it had to be animated, I'd be like, fine, doesn't really change anything. Can it at least look like an old 80s cartoon? I really can't stand what passes for 2D animation in the modern era. Bring back real animation! Another exec mandate, I imagine, might apply to the ages of the characters. The main trio and Kia are 11 years old, never explicitly stated, but you can figure it out from the text, and surely they'd think they should be 16 so it'd be more marketable, but I'd be like, alright, if you say so, but you remember the first 2 Harry Potter movies? How they were all young and it was colorful and whimsical? That's what we're going for here, for the kids. Do you remember the Percy Jackson movies? Or the Giver movie? No, you do not. I'm just saying. As for how the series would begin, I figure The Hidden Stairs and the Magic Carpet would be a 2-part pilot. It's short enough that it could be the only book that becomes 1 episode, but I think our introduction is worth expanding. Side note, I realized once that if every standard book in the series was 1 episode and every special edition book was 2 episodes, that would add up to 52 episodes, which is exactly how many episodes a nice solid TV series has, but I think the series merits more episodes than that. At least 2 episodes per book. I hope. Let's start with the theme song, although American TV shows don't really have theme songs anymore, do they? Just little 10-second snippets of the title and the creator's name, and maybe I'd have to produce the show in Canada or Australia or someplace where they still have title sequences with the full theme song and clips of all the main actors. I want to do that. For the theme song, Lights by Ellie Goulding. I don't know why, I just like that song. You show the lights that stop me, turn to stone. You shine it when I'm alone. And so I tell myself that I'll be strong and dreaming when they're gone. That one. I think 7 actors and characters would appear in the title sequences, so here's my actor ideas. For the most part, I'm talking about ideas for a live-action version. If my version differs where the show would be animated, I'll just say so. And an animated show wouldn't advertise its voice actors in the title sequence, so there's that. But here's my ideas for the main cast. Now, I don't know much about child actors, so when I'm doing a fan cast and I think a role requires an actual child, I tend to leave that spot blank, even if I fill up every other teeny tiny role in the whole story. In this case, let's go with archetypes for the main child characters. First build would be Eric. Seems only natural to go with a young Daniel Radcliffe type, circa 2000. Sort of an all-American version of Dan. Yeehaw. Put the Eric makeup on him. There we go. Yeah, I can't do digital art yet. I can't do digital art yet. I'm gonna learn. Second is Julie. Let's go with a young Ariel Winter type, circa 2009. Julie is cute and really enthusiastic, and heck, if the show was animated, we could just go with a real Ariel Winter to play her. Oh my god. Although maybe not, because I think we would only get the proper energy from the main trio if they were all real kids playing off each other. Plus, Ariel Winter is probably done with little kid roles. I mean, just look at her. She tops my celebrity safe list, you know. Dresses the way she wants and doesn't care what anybody thinks. I admire that. Neil is third build, let's say a young Macaulay Culkin type, circa 1992. More so than the others, it's important that Neil's act to be a really good actor, especially with good comic timing. So there's our 3 leads. Let's talk about their style a bit. The book's illustrations usually depict them in plain t-shirts of a single solid color, jeans, and sneakers. Fair enough, right? That's just about the only outfit in history that's really stood the test of time. So I'd go with that, not spice it up too much, just a different colored shirt every story arc. Maybe sometimes they do something with their hair, just like the book illustrations, really. Then our 4th build would be Kia. Let's go with the young Dakota Fanning type, circa 2006. We need someone with a lot of gravitas, but still a decent sense of fun, too, and well, I don't think they have braces in Droon, so that kind of narrows down our selection, but the pretty hair and the crown, the books sometimes describe her tunics as blue, sometimes as green, but I figure she's a princess. She probably owns more than one spangly tunic, so her outfits can vary too. Now, if the show was animated, I would cast my sister Ziya in the role of Kia. You just heard her. A bit old for the role already, but in a cartoon, she could pull it off. Now we have our 5th actor, Lord Spar. Who's that, Malcolm McDowell? Nah, get him out of here. It's me. I want to be Spar. This is my fantasy. I want to play the bad guy. Yeah, there we go. Hello, Princess Kia. I will be the ruler of Droon. I'm a sorcerer and stuff. Seize them! I do better with a real script. I don't ad-lib. I just don't. So don't ask. Then Max's actor gets a with credit, and Galen's gets an and credit. For Max, I wanted... well, dang. In the 4 or 5 years since I first put this fan cast together, several of my actors have died, and the most recent one to do so was Vern Troyer, the legendary 2'8" actor stuntman with just the perfect face and voice to be Max, in addition to his totally unique size. Max would be part live actor, part puppetry. The books go back and forth on whether Max is just a spider with a human head or whether he's humanoid with 4 arms and 4 legs. I'd go with the latter, give the actor some freedom and dignity with the ability to use his own arms and legs. And the second pairs, we just keep them still so the audience doesn't really notice them, maybe some minor puppetry for when they absolutely need to be moving. But whoever gets the role, it won't be anybody as unique as Vern Troyer. Hi, Aramie.
Hi.
So, after with Vern Troyer as Max, we get and Mark Hamill as Galen Longbeard. Heck yeah. When I came up with that idea, Star Wars Episode 7 was just something that we kind of knew was going to happen, but I figured Hamill's been an awesome voice actor for years. I bet whatever he does as the elder Luke Skywalker will be perfect for Galen. And once The Last Jedi came out, he turned out pretty different than I'd expected. I don't know, I personally loved The Last Jedi, but it's not what I had in mind for Galen. We'll figure it out. Mark Hamill is Galen. He's all in shape now after playing Luke again. It'll be perfect. As for the actual episode, I've pretty much covered it. Very soundstagey and Droon, lots of practical effects, few specifics. We out of pizza?
Yes.
Alright, you want some pears?
There's no pears.
There's canned pears.
Nah.
Okay. What was I saying? Okay, so very soundstagey and Droon, lots of practical effects. Yes, I'm reading from a script. A few specifics. There's only one guest star in this book, and that's Eric's mom, Mrs. Hinkle. I think I would cast Judy Greer in that role. In expanding the episode, I'd probably include just a handful of other characters who debut later, like Eric's dad and Kia's dad, and possibly Prince Zorfendorf, but I'll talk about them when they have their proper literary debuts. So, things to design, the rainbow stairs, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, how do you F that up? Nins, now those are more interesting. I figured the Nins can be played by a combination of guest actors and the on-staff puppeteers. Take those guys, paint them red all over, give them pointy chins, pointy ears, sharp teeth, yellow eyes, claw hands. I don't think I'd make the Nins all chubby. I'd want them to be genuinely intimidating, so a variety of body types. Also, the books say they have 6 fingers on each hand, but we'd probably have to sacrifice that. It'd be too hard to do in live action, and it'd be hard to animate. Groggles are a tougher cookie. Might have to resort to CGI for them. Or not. Could be various practical tricks depending on the nature of the shot and who's on screen with them. Pilkas, let's just glue fuzzy stuff to horses. Again, the 6 legs thing just not gonna work. The White Falcon, puppet. Simple as that. Probably not simple, but that's the general idea. As for other props, there's the Red Eye of Dawn, the Magic Carpet. Let's just go with the way they're described in the books. Bring them to life with the 80s-ist special effects we can muster. Ooh, that felt good. All right, somebody hand me the next book. All right, here it is, Journey to the Volcano Palace. I had it by my side, even though you can't see me and there was no real point to it except to accidentally screw up who I thought the illustrator was. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking there. Alright, I'll talk about Book 2, Journey to the Volcano Palace, next week. In conclusion, well, it's not time yet to ask you to like and share and follow me on social media. I don't have much to say yet outside of what I've already said right here in the podcast, so just keep an eye out for next week's podcast, I guess. Later.